full-time employee since May 2020. I have previous history working for the organization as a summer student, as a bursary and scholarship support officer, as well as a regional representative in our Rivers to Success. Today I'm going to be giving you a brief overview of our application. I'll be opening the floor throughout my presentation for any questions you may have, and at the end as well for a bigger group discussion if need be, or any more questions that you have once the presentation is finished. So let's get started. So the next slide. So we're going to go over the necessary documentation that is needed in order to complete your application. So I'll be touching base on those. So the documents that are needed are proof of status, marks, proof of full-time enrollment, and the last one is sponsorship documentation or training sponsorship documentation. And the next one. So the first one we're going to go over is the proof of status. So next slide. So the first being a photocopy of the front and back of your First Nations Inuit or Métis card. The picture you do see above on the slide right now is the First Nation status card. The reason why we do ask the front and back is because a lot of the crucial information that we are looking for is on the front and back of these cards, which is we're looking for your name, mainly the First Nations Inuit or Métis community that you are coming from. And then I also want to make note that your Indigenous community must be federally recognized, so that is another thing that we are looking for. For non-status First Nation students, they are to submit a copy of their long-form birth certificate and a copy of their parent and or grandparent status card. Next slide. So the next one that you see here is a picture of the older status card. As you see, it has the name on the front, the information, so your registry number, and then on the back side of it, it states your nation or tribe on there. So that is one of the reasons why we do ask for the front and back. Next slide. So the next one we have is a copy of a provincial Métis card. We do require that all Métis applicants do have a provincial card. A lot of times a lot of students have difficulties with this as they haven't obtained the card. So a paper form can be accepted. However, once you do receive your card, we do require that you email us in your card when you do receive it. Next one. And the last example is of our Inuit beneficiary card and what is required to be visible. So if you see on there, I apologize that the picture is a bit blurry, but it will say the applicant's name, and then there is the tiny part on the bottom right corner. So this information needs to be visible. And next slide. Next, I'm going to discuss is your grades that are needed for the application. So if you could go to the next slide, please. So final marks from your most recent completed academic year or program. So our second document is final marks from your most recent completed academic year. This must include your name, the school's name, and the term for the grades. These can be a screenshot from your student web account or an unofficial transcript / official transcript. I do want to stress the importance of having your name, the school's name, and the terms clearly listed. A lot of times when students are getting incomplete applications back, it's because one of the information out of those three are missing. So we do stress that, and especially in our incomplete emails, you will see that it is bolded, highlighted, underlined, that such information. So do pay attention to that stuff. If you have difficulties obtaining a document with that, do email us and we can definitely assist you, as we have seen many institutions and are familiar with a lot of their websites and how they work and how to get that information included in it. Next slide, please. So for the 2020-2021 academic year, we typically require fall 2019 and winter 2020 marks. If you were not attending school during that time, then it would be your most recent completed academic year program prior to fall 2020. So if you took a break after high school, it would be your high school transcript that we do require if that was your latest completed grade. And then, so the information that you do see on this page, so there would definitely be a problem with this document if you were to submit it because it doesn't list the student's name or the school that. So do be wary of that. And then the next slide. This one as well doesn't have the student's name. So just be really mindful of that information. Next slide, please. Next is proof of full-time enrollment. Next slide. So the third document required is proof of full-time enrollment for the 2020-2021 academic year. This document must include your name, the school's name, and the academic term. This can be a copy of your class schedule showing all the classes that you are registered for. The schedules can be a screenshot from your student web account or an official letter or form on letterhead from your school stating that you're enrolled full-time for the 2020-2021 academic year. So once again, this goes with the information that I had just said about the grades and how it is very important for your name, the school's name, and the terms to be clearly listed on that document once you do submit it. So do be mindful of that information once again. And then, so on this document here that is on the screen right now, you can see that someone had submitted their timetable. However, in the next slide that you will be seeing, you can, sorry, can you go to the next slide? You can see that we see all of their schedules. So we see all the courses that they're registered for. And then in the previous, if it takes you numerous of documents to obtain your name, the school's name, and all your schedule, that's fine. So don't worry about it. You're more than welcome to submit more than one document for the for that documentation that you need to submit. You're more than welcome to copy and paste as many things as long as we have that information included in that. Next slide, please. So the other document that you see on the slide here, letter from band associate beneficiary. Oh, I apologize. So this is actually discussing the fourth document that's needed, which is the band sponsorship form or training bursary from your organization, whether it be from your nation or tribe's office, post-secondary educational office, or any of the Métis foundations. So a lot of them will provide you with a letter. So this is definitely one of the required in order to have your document your application to go forward. This is a sponsorship letter for the 2020-2021 academic year that you would need to submit. The documentation must include your name, the Indigenous organization's name, and must be dated. A copy of the official confirmation letter from your organization's education office stating whether you are being sponsored for the upcoming academic year or not being sponsored. Sponsorship funding letters must provide a breakdown or denial letter stating that you are not being funded or do not have an active file. And then that is it for the documentation. So I'll open it up if anyone has any questions that they may have about any of the documentation before we move on to the rest of the application.
If you have a question, you can just unmute yourself or you can pop it in the chat if you want, and I can read it out.
I had a question. Can you repeat what documentation would be needed for proof of status if an individual is non-static?
Sorry, can you repeat the last little bit? I couldn't really hear.
Can you repeat what you said for documentation for proof of status? If a student is non-status, what would they have to supply?
Okay, for non-status, so you would have to say, for example, if it was for First Nation students, you're allowed to go back 2 generations. So if your parent has a status card, it would be their status card and a copy of your long-form birth certificate. If it's your grandparent, it would have to be your grandparent's status card, your parent's long-form birth certificate showing the relationship, and then your long-form birth certificate showing your relationship to that parent. It sounds lengthy, but that's what we have to do in order to trace the lineage. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Is there any more questions?
I don't see any in the chat.
Okay, so I will move on, and then if there are any further questions about the documentation, definitely write it in the chat and I can review it at the end. Just maybe remind me if I miss it, okay? All right, so the next couple slides are going to be showing how to fill out sections within the application itself, and then I'll be going over those. So this one is just an introductory on how to complete the budget section. So the first one that you're going to come up to is the family status. So select your family status and living situation for the academic year. And if you have dependents residing in your household, here's where you'll indicate your family status, whether that may be single and living independently, or married, common law, or living with partner. Whatever your living situation may be, here you will also indicate if you have dependents. So this is children that are your own. A lot of times we have students, if they're still living at home with their parents, they might get confused and think that they can include their brothers and sisters in this. That's not the case. So these are your children that will go under have you have dependents. So the next slide is finances. So list any bursary, scholarships, and awards you have applied for and the status for the application. Here you list any bursary, scholarships, and awards you have applied for and the status of the application. And these are for this academic year. So if you have applied for awards, bursaries, and scholarships for this fall 2020 and winter 2021, that's the information that you would put. These awards that you are going to input in this section are separate from your band funding amount. So if you're getting sponsored by any of your Métis organizations, any of your nation or band sponsorship, this information does not go in the finance under the bursary and scholarship and awards portion. Your band funding amounts are not bursaries, scholarships, or awards and should not be input into this section. And once again, I just want to confirm that this is for this academic year, and any ones that you had received in the past don't need to be input in this section. Next slide, please. Next, we have student loans and employment. And this is input if you have applied for a student loan or received a student loan, the amount, and if you'll be working during the academic year. So we do have on there, do you have prior student loans? Do you intend to apply for a student loan for the applied academic year? Are you receiving government free tuition? I do want to mention that a lot of times students do put no, that they do not intend to apply for student loans for the academic year because they find that it'll affect their financial need in the end, which it won't do. So I do want to make that known So sometimes students just don't put an amount in that section. And then at the bottom, will you work during the applied academic school year? And depending on what your answer is, it'll open up boxes in the next little section. So that's it for that one. Slide, please. And then the next section is step 7 under budget. So school length, input the number of months you are enrolled full-time, and then select the 2020-2021 for the academic year and select your academic start and end date. So this could be from, if you're only in school from September to December, do put that. If it's a full-length year, then definitely put that. So from September to April. And if you're going into the summer months and you do know that, that's pretty, like you're pretty much guaranteeing that you're going to be in school for the spring and summer terms, definitely put that length as well. And then what is the school length of your full-time enrollment for the applied academic year? When that question shows up, it's just asking how many months that you're in school for that academic year. So if it is the full length of the whole year from September to August, you're putting in 12 months in that question. And then we'll go to the next slide. So the yearly income, input sponsorship amounts received for the academic year. I do apologize, the wording is a bit small, but we did try to fit it in there. So confirm bursaries and scholarships that will be transferred over. And as you can see, that would be auto-calculated from above. And then your tuition. My tuition, books, and fees are being sponsored for the applied academic year by my First Nations, Inuit, or Métis organization. Because you are inputting, the sponsorship is one of the documents that are required for your application. We cross-reference this, so all the information that you're putting in here is what would be on the breakdown from your sponsorship order. So if covering your tuition, you put that amount, the books amount, travel allowance, and then there's also a section at the bottom of that yearly income part A that asks for the yearly parental support towards school expenses. If you don't have any of those amounts, that's fine, but definitely if you are being sponsored, make sure to put in the tuition and book amount. And then everything in our system is auto-calculated. So you'll see at the end, at the bottom of that slide, it's total yearly income. So that's just going off of what your sponsor's giving you or what your parents have contributed to your academic year. And then next slide. So monthly income. So input monthly amounts. The application auto-calculates the yearly income based on the school length input into the application. So if you see on the top there, and once again, I do apologize if the lettering is small. However, once you review the application, I promise you it's not that small and it's really eligible. So the living allowance sponsorship for the applied academic year. So this would be from your band sponsorship or your Métis organization or anyone that is sponsoring you. If you are receiving living allowance, that's what the amount that you would be putting in there. And then the next section is your partner / spouse employed. You can input their amount. And then the next section is government funding. So with this part, it says employment, EI, social assistance, child tax benefit, pension, provincial funding. If you're receiving any of that on a monthly basis, do input that amount. And then the next question is, do you have a registered education savings plan? If you do, then another box will come up and it'll ask for the amount monthly that you'd be receiving from your registered education savings plan. Then once again, it auto-calculates your total monthly income, and that is how you come up with a total at the end. And once again, it is going back to how many months that you are in school for. So I know that these numbers can become a bit confusing for some. And then we can go to the next slide. So yearly expenses, input your yearly expenses of tuition and books, if applicable, and professional attire and transportation costs. So with this, your total tuition for the applied academic year, you don't have to put the exact amount in. If you don't know that information, you can just take a rough estimate and put that in there. That's your books. So roughly we say that 500 per term for your books. So if you're taking a guess, that's the information that you would input there.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Fee.
Can you repeat that? It cut out a little bit when you were saying the calculation.
Yep. So the totals for tuition and books, if you're unsure of the actual cost of your tuition and books, you can take a rough guess. Generally for books, we estimate that it's like $500 per term. So however many terms you're in, if it's just like September to April, then that's $1,000 an estimate for books. However, we are aware that some programs do cost a lot more for their supplies and things that they need to invest in for the academic year. We're aware of that, so we definitely look at their education and cross-reference like the generic cost things. So that's with that portion. And then the next is yearly relocation fee. So students who are relocating over 100 kilometers to the current school residence, Inspire will consider relocation costs once per diploma or degree. The maximum claim can be $2,000. So that's another thing that can definitely boost your financial needs if need be. The next one is professional attire. So this is uniforms or professional clothing required to be purchased for your educational program. So these are programs such as nursing, doctors, police, firemen, any of that you need clothes for. You can input a cost there. However, if it's for, say for example, if you're in I'll use my background as an example. If I was in criminology, there was no clothes that I needed to purchase in order to get through one of my classes or courses, any of that. So I wouldn't have to put any professional attire. And then the next is your transportation costs. So this refers to the gas, bus, or air costs for 2 visits home per year. Transportation costs by most economic means. If you moved from home for your post-secondary studies, that's where you can input amounts. Normally where students are driving and say they live like half an hour away from their campus, what happens is a lot of times like they can apply and put like $400 per month or per year, I apologize, in gas costs. And then we'll go to the next one. So monthly expenses, if applicable, input your monthly childcare or any monthly insurance payments such as life, house, automobile, or renter's assurance. The application will auto-calculate students' total financial needs. So in this section, if you have a child in your care, then do put your monthly childcare fees, your insurance, so life, car, home, and contents, health insurance, etc. Put that amount monthly into that breakdown right there. And then once again, so everything, the totals on the bottom here are auto-calculated. And then at the bottom where it says financial expense calculation, this would be where you will see your financial need. If it does not have the minus sign, that's stating that you do not have a financial need. You're more than welcome to revisit the amounts that you input. And if you input anything incorrectly, you can definitely change it. But yes, so that is where you'll see your financial need. And then the next slide, please. So monthly expenses calculation. How are my monthly expenses calculated? So Inspire uses a provincial monthly expense provided by the government of what it costs to live in each province. Also provided are costs for those with a partner and dependents. A lot of times when in the past we had allowed students to input amounts for their rent, food, and stuff like that, and some students' inputs were very extreme. So that is why we have now gone from using them provincial monthly expenses provided by the government to have basically everyone on equal ground. But like I said, it also monitors the province, and we also take in consideration if you live in high cost living areas as well. And then once the student inputs their address with the province they live in, their family status, and if they have dependents, the application calculates a monthly expense. This amount is calculated in the total financial need of the application. And then we'll go to the next slide, which is just opening up for more discussion on any questions that one may have about any of the sections that were discussed. You're more than welcome to also put the questions in on the chat. And then, like I said, I will be monitoring as well if there's any questions that come through. Okay, if there are no questions, I will keep moving forward. And then, so next slide, please. Okay, so these are a few things to keep in mind. One of the things, not all applicants are successful in receiving awards. While we try our very best, funds are limited and our number of applications continue to grow each year. Inspire supports applicants through bursaries, scholarships, and awards. Funds received through Inspire do not cover the cost of tuition, textbooks and supplies, or allowances. That is done through your Indigenous organization. Inspire funds received can be used at your discretion, whether that be funds towards rent costs, paying for textbooks or tuition, or simply catching up on student loans. Our bursary and scholarship officers work with each application one-on-one. If there are any outstanding documents or information required, we work directly with each applicant to ensure their application gets completed. So this looks like a lot of follow-ups. If you find any difficulties when you are going through the application, you are more than welcome to email our education mailbox. It's education@inspire.ca, and one of either myself or my coworkers will definitely help you through whatever difficulties that you may face. And then next slide, please. So more things that are to be kept in mind. Our applicants are only eligible once per academic year. So I know that Allison had forwarded me a question that a student had where they had asked about whether they need to do an application for each deadline, which isn't the case. So you only need one app to fill out one application. And if you, by any chance, do not, if it's still incomplete, it'll automatically get moved to the next deadline and you're still able to log into your application and finish where you left off. as I just mentioned that, the second point, and then funds for part-time students is limited. So definitely specify that whether you are going to be full-time or part-time in your application. If you're part-time, that's okay. Just know that once again, the funds are limited for part-time students. Next slide, please. So how matching works. So each of our sponsors provide an outline of criteria they would like us to follow when it comes to awarding applicants. These outlines can be very generic. For example, must be enrolled at Brock University in business, or they can get a little trickier and more specific. For example, must be First Nations from these specific communities attending school in Saskatchewan and a field of study related to construction. Our database allows us to input all the criteria, and it assists us in filtering through all the applications to find those that fit what our sponsors are looking for. Secondly, each application is awarded points in 3 different areas of the application: the grade point average, financial need, and community involvement. Each of these sections total up to what is called a jury score. The jury score selections play a big role in the decisions as well, because our sponsors also request for individuals with higher levels of academic achievement, community involvement, and always students who need financial support. One of the things that a lot of students miss in our application is the importance of their community participation. We do allow students to reflect on the past 5 years. And that could be anything as simple as babysitting for a friend, anything that involves no financial means. So if you had picked up garbage for your community on the side of the road, those are hours that you can definitely put into your application. So when you are filling out your application, do reflect on all of those aspects and put them in, because once again, that is very important, and the jury does look at that stuff. Next slide, please. So the application deadlines, which are August 1st, November 1st, and February 1st. And then the last slide, please. So the last one is, if anyone has any further questions, you're more than welcome to ask myself, or even after the presentation, if you have anything that you need that comes up, you can definitely message Allison or Inspire, and then hopefully one of us will certainly get back to you in a very timely manner. But yeah, so I'll open it up if anyone has any further questions about the application, about the documents, or any of that sort.
I see a couple in the chat. JP asks, what about a letter of intent? Is that sufficient? JP, I don't know if you want to unmute yourself and maybe provide a little bit more context to the question.
Okay. Hi. I was trying to apply for a program. It's through Red River College, and they provided me with a letter of intent. They didn't, because the course is through distance education, and it is a full-time program, but they didn't provide like an actual like letter of acceptance, and all they could provide was a letter of intent. So I'm wondering if that is something that is sufficient enough, or is there something more that I would need to do, or?
Hi there. Okay, so you would definitely need to obtain another letter.
Okay.
Only the problem that we run into letters of intent is that it's not notifying us that you're officially registered in this program. So if you have a document that shows the courses that you're registered in, and it shows like I said, all the documentation must have your name, the school's name, and the terms clearly listed on it. If you have a documentation with those 3 information and all the classes that you're registered in, that should be fine.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep. Sounds good.
Any other questions?
Could you show the dates again for the intake?
So with the application deadlines, I will let you guys know that sometimes there are dates in between those as well. It all depends on our jury and that deadline. So the August 1st, November 1st, and February 1st. What I can recommend is that if you haven't started an application with us, I do recommend applying for the November 1st deadline rather than waiting for February 1st.
There's another question in the chat. Do you need to have specific averages for the scholarship?
Sorry, do you need to have a certain average? Is that what the question was?
I think so. It's from Cassie, if you want to unmute yourself. Like, is there a certain threshold in terms of like you have to have above an X% average, or does it depend on the award, I guess?
Some criteria for the awards, and it's so open, right? That we have throughout our organization. For example, over and you'll have an 80 average. Some applicants are very and sort of look for that sort of thing. Other than that, honestly, for a jury score, and so that's something that you take into consideration. A lot of the time, bursaries and scholarships that are through and awards that are through ours don't necessarily have a grade criteria unless, like I said, it is for like a medical school and such information like that.
Thanks. So another question from Riley: how do we start an application to get funding?
Okay, so you know what? I will put our website into the little chat here on where to go to start your application. Okay, so I just inserted the direct page. It'll take you to the bursary scholarship for application. And then if you scroll down a little, it'll say apply now. You and just here, that information will say sufficient to register again for application. Password.
And I can make sure when I share the recording to include the link as well, so that if you want to review anything in the presentation, you can also click through to Inspire's website as well.
Thank you, Allison. So it doesn't seem like we have any more questions. I will write down my email really quick as well in the chat. So if to write it down, and if they have any further you can email me personally, and I will get back to you. There is a bit of a time difference, but don't worry, I will still reply to you in a timely fashion. So, thank you everyone for listening in to my presentation. Once again, I do apologize for myself having technical difficulties, but I do appreciate the question that came forward. And then I wish you all the best of luck with the upcoming academic year and the years to follow. So yeah, the link is there for our bursary. If you want to go ahead and do that today, perfect. My email is there if you have any questions. And on the bottom of the slide that is up right now, education@inspire.ca, this is our general education mailbox, where it is but like I said, I'm definitely open to helping any students that are listening to this presentation right now. So yeah, if you have any questions, definitely give me an email or email the education mailbox. Other than that, I hope you all have a wonderful day. And once again, I appreciate you listening in and bearing with me.
Thanks so much, Taylor, for everything. And I do just want to remind everyone that Inspire will be joining us again next Wednesday for a presentation on their Rivers to Success mentorship program. So if you're a high school student, undergraduate student, or a grad student who's maybe more interested in mentoring, definitely join in next week. You can register on our website, just on the same page that you would have registered for this webinar, and it'll be hosted on WebEx as well. So thank you again, Taylor, and we'll hopefully see lots of you next week.
Thank you, Allison. I definitely hope people chime into the Rivers to Success. It's a really great mentorship program. So yeah.
Awesome. Okay, have a good day, everybody. I'm going to stop the video and close our WebEx. Bye.